Okay, Andy, this question is from Jonathan. I'm just trying to learn about swimming a jig. How do you swim a jig?
Uh, Jonathan, that's a good question. You basically got two ways you can swim it in grass or you can swim it around cover. And it actually varies. In the grass, you want to use a real pointed head, and I like to just wind it in the grass. I don't put a lot of action into it. I use like a raised crawl. See my cat jumping up here. I use like a raised crawl. Strike king raised crawl, something that's already got a lot of action. Just let the bait kind of do the action, and then when you swim it around cover, I like to use kind of a shad oriented bait, like a white one, and then I will impart a lot of action with my rod. I like to do a pumping action, a pretty fast pumping action. So if it was me, I would. My cat wants to be on the internet. In grass, just just kind of wind it. That seems to work better for me. And then when you fish it around cover and stuff, put the action in it with your rod.
Well, Andy, I'm gonna kind of add to that question a little bit. I've traveled all around the country to these tournaments, and what I've noticed the swim jig is fished kind of two different ways. Guys out west seem to just fish it with a steady reel. And it seems most of the guys, North Carolina, South Carolina guys, all seem to fish it with that pumping action. Do you have any explanation for that?
Well, probably because there's not a lot of grass around here. So we fish it around a lot of docks and a lot of wood cover. So it just seems, just my experience, you get more bites when you're around that cover. Putting the action in the bait. You know, Doing it with your rod, and in Florida and Grass Lakes, the Potomac stuff. It just seems like you catch them better, just kind of whining it. That real subtle action, seems to be real good. Like I say, you got to put a trailer that's going to put a lot of action in your bait, like the Raid Crawl or the new Strike Team Menace is real good too. So use when in grass again. Use a bait that's going a trailer that's going to put a lot of action in your bait. And then when I swim around wood, I use just a standard chunk trailer, and that's the reason you got to kind of put the action in the bait.
All right, I just got another question in via text from a buddy of mine. He was wanting to know the Tatulas. What do you really think about those reels, and what ratio would you recommend for the swim jig?
Uh, the new Tutulas is 90% of what I'm going to use. So I got a few back here. A few of my Daiwa stuff. I don't know if y'all can see that. That's some of my Daiwa reels and stuff. Um, 90% of what I'm gonna use is gonna be the Tatula. And it's gonna be a great swim jig reel just because it casts so easy. I can skip it so good. With the T-wing bar, it just makes everything so effortless, and it just kind of rolls. It's real smoothest reel I've ever used. It's got a new air rotation deal, so the handle's real smooth. And you're gonna be able to feel them bites. Most time on the swim jig they knock the rod out of your hand, so that's not that big a deal. But the Type R has an 8-to-1 ratio. That'd be good for swimming a jig, and the regular Tatula has like a 7-3-to-1 action. So either one of the high speed retrieves will be good because a lot of times when they bite that swim jig, they knock slack in your line. So you need a reel that you can get that slack out quick, and 8-to-1 is about as fast as anything on the market.
All right, here's another question from Michael. Michael's asking, in all your years of fishing, what's some of the most common mistakes you've seen co-anglers make?
He's doing the same thing the pro does. Um, you know, it's just so hard to catch a fish behind a pro when you're doing the exact same technique he does. And my advice is to do something different. The biggest bags that's been caught behind me, and my career started out as a co-angler in FLW, and my good days was, was with stuff that the pros didn't have. Now I was fortunate. I was kind of on the front end of the scatterbait craze, and I had some scatterbaits, and then some of the pros didn't have one. So I did real well with that. But just do something different from your pro, and remember that from the back of the boat, co-angler, it's about getting bites. It's not about catching big fish. It's about catching a lot of fish. And so throw like a shaky head, like a ocho, um, throw something that you think you're gonna get a lot of bites on, drop shot, stuff like that. That'd be my advice.
All right, here's another question from Stretches 10. Actually, it's two questions, and I'm going to just give them to you both at once. What knot do you use for fluorocarbon, and what's your favorite color KVD slash bait?
The knot I use for fluorocarbon, I think it's called the single all bright knot. I think that's what it's called. Not real sure. But it's just one time through the eye, and then you kind of wrap your line going back up towards your rod or whatever. It's not Aaron Martin's side. I read it on Bassmaster.com that that's what Aaron used, and I started tying it. So, the biggest thing about fluorocarbon line is you got to make sure you wet the line when you cinch the knot down, and if you get it cinched down right, it's not going to break. But if it's going to break when you jerk on it pretty good, it's usually going to break right then. And what was the other question I forgot?
The other question was, what's your favorite color KVD slash bait?
Oh man, I wish I could remember off the top of my head, but it's the blue back. It's kind of like a pro blue color. It's got the chartreuse belly on it. I can't remember the technical name for it. Give me just a second, and I'll Strike King books here. I'm trying to go through my tackle and get stuff that I'm gonna need. Strobe shad. That's my favorite. Um, that's my favorite color. It's got a little purple on the back, little blue, purple, clear size, and then the chartreuse or yellow on the belly. That's my favorite color. So typically, when I fish, the slash bait, um, it's for spots and for smallmouth, and that color just seems to be, just seems to really trigger spots and smallmouth.
All right, here's another question. This one's coming from Ken, and he wants to know what's your favorite lake in South Carolina to fish.
Probably my favorite lake to fish is Santee. And I don't get to fish it much. I hadn't been there in, gosh, I hadn't been there in like 4 or 5 years now. But it's really good right now. I got a lot of buddies that live down in that area. Man, they catch them. They catch them in the springtime, and even in the fall, they're actually catching. They're catching a lot of fish in the fall. So, it's one of the best lakes in the country, and I like going down there and fishing when I get a chance. Unfortunately, I hadn't got a chance the last several years, but we got a lot of good lakes. I like Lake Murray. We've been down there striper fishing a lot this winter. I know it's not bass fishing, but it's striped bass. But the striper fishing down there is incredible right now. So that'd probably be my two picks off the top of my head.
All right, here's another just a follow up question from Ken. Uh, the 2015 Classic is going to be on Hartwell. Uh, what are your thoughts on that tournament?
Well, it's like an hour and 15 minutes from my house, and unfortunately, I hadn't spent a lot of time there. I should have. I went to school at Clemson, so I could actually see the lake from my apartment. And I had a boat at school, but with me and my roommate, we just stayed on Kiowee too much. I hadn't really had a lot of experience catching spotted bass, and we got to fishing Kiowee a lot, and man, we just killed them spotted bass, and it kept me from fishing Hartwell. And I know what I know now that that a lot of major tournaments was going to come to Hartwell. I'm fishing FLW, in March there, and then the Classic known what I know now, I would have spent a lot more time on Hartwell. But with that being said, it's still an hour and 15 minutes from the house. So, if I do make it, I'll definitely know my way around. Know my way around the lake before the classic starts.
Okay, here's another one from Stretches 10. Can you give us your football jig setup? And he kind of like to know the jig, size, and the color.
Um, keep it simple. Green pumpkin. I like to use. Well, let me. We got two. Strike King's got two football jigs. We got a heavy hook football jig, and then we got the regular football jig. And if you're gonna make really, really long casts, with maybe like light line, 12-pound line, then need to use the light wire football head. And if you're going to be fishing around a lot of cover, if you're going to be using big line, a little bit dirtier water, then you can use the heavy hook, the heavy hook football jig. Both of them hook up really good. And, I've never had a problem with the light wire hook. So why we think we need to use the heavy hook, I don't know. But it's kind of a macho thing. You need a big hook to catch big fish. But color wise, green pumpkin, black and blue. 95% of the time, I'm gonna use green pumpkin. And then maybe if the water's real dirty or something, we may use black and blue. Trailer wise, the new Strike King Menace is killer. I mean, killer on a football jig. It's kind of, I hate to say that's what it was designed for, but it almost seems that way because it's perfect for the football jig. And before the minutes come out, I always use the Rage Crawl. Most of the time, I use the Baby Rage Crawl because I like a real compact football jig, trim the skirt up real short. If you know the minutes trailer, the Rage Crawl, and then I would almost say just you could almost always use green pumpkin. That's pretty much what I do. And I know some of the best football jig fishermen, they are Mark Rose, and they pretty much stick with green pumpkin too. Size wise, two sizes. You're gonna use a 3/4 and a half ounce. If you're fishing a lot of current, Tennessee River Lakes got a lot of current, then you probably gonna need to use a 3/4. If you're not fishing that much current, then you can probably get away with the half ounce.
All right, here's another question coming in for you. What water temperature do you start to swim a jig? So, what temperature do you start swimming the jig?
Yeah, it needs to be pretty warm. So I'm gonna say maybe 65 is a good number. It's hard to really put a number on water temperature. I'm not a big believer in water temperature. I'm a bigger believer in time of year, and the summer. You know, Early summer through the summer and into the fall is a really good time of year to swim a jig. So, I'm a big believer the fish go by time of day instead of water temperature. So, the length of the days and stuff. So that's the reason I put a lot of emphasis on the time of year. So, late April, May, June, July, even into September and October, that's the time of year that I like to swim a jig.
All right, how about this one? Andy, give us some thoughts on the Alabama rig, and do you fish it much?
We pretty much can't fish it on either tour now, so I'm not gonna fish it much. But I've got some experience here at home with it. I caught a ton of fish at Wiley this year, on some guide trips and just fun fishing on the Alabama rig. And then we actually fished a few local tournaments here, and we throwed it a good big. It was a big deal at Lake Norman. I'm not a real big fan of it. Some of the reasons guys give that catches every fish in the lake and all that, I don't believe in that. It's got its time and place. It don't catch them all year long. But it's definitely got a time when it just outfishes everything else. And for some reason, it'll fool a big fish. It will definitely trick a big fish. So I'm glad we ain't got to worry about it. Just kind of from a selfish point of view. Rigging up rigging up 5 baits, or the one we're throwing at home here has 9 on it. Rigging up, getting one swim bait to run straight hard enough, much less getting 9. So, I'm glad I don't have to worry about the tackle, that comes along with that. And but if you're just a local fisherman, you can catch a lot of fish. Where's you at? It's hard fishing that thing all day, but it definitely catches fish. It catches big fish.
All right. Stretches 10 wants to know how do you handle fluorocarbon line on a spinning reel? It always seems to have loop problems and knots.
Yeah, well, we pretty much don't anymore. Most of the pros use braid, and we use a fluorocarbon leader. That's what you need to do on your spinning rod. That's definitely the way to go. So that'd be. It's cheaper too. You only have to buy, put an 8 foot leader on it or whatever, and you can fill it up with braid. Leave it on there a long time. Seagull's got a new braid called Smackdown. You need to use a good braid too. If you just go buy the real cheap braid, it's a 6 strand braid. It's real flat, real stiff, and it'll come off spinning reel too fast and maybe loop on you. But if you buy a real good, high quality braid, it makes the world. You can fish with it all year. I don't know when you'd ever have to change it really, and just keep tying your leader on there. The new Smackdown, I think, is what Seagull's new braid is. It's an 8 strand braid, and even more than 8 strand on the lighter braid. So it's real smooth, easy to cast. That'd be my 2 tips: use braid, and don't go on the cheap end. Get a high quality braid, because the cheap 6 strand braids don't give you the same problem.
All right. Here's another question for you. Man, these guys are just picking you apart about jig fishing for some reason. Um, Give us some tips on skipping jigs.
That's been skipping jigs. That's probably the number one question I get asked. You need to use a good reel. Don't skip on your reel. Don't skip on your rod. I say that. I've always used the Zillion, which is like a $300 reel. So and now we got the Tula, which is what I used last year, and you can go buy one of them for $150. So it's affordable to get a reel that gives better than any reel I've ever used. So get you a good Tula reel and match your rod to what size you are. I'm a tall guy, so I use like a 7 foot, and even like this year I think I'm using a 7-1 Tatula. In the past I've always used a 7 foot Zillion. But if you're, I like to say I'm like 6'3", 6'4". If you're in the upper fives, 5'10", 5'11", even 6 foot, then use a 6'6" rod, or maybe a 6'9" rod, and that's gonna help you skip better. You don't have to use that big sidearm motion, so you won't hit the water. And the other tip, that I can give you is just kind of compare it to skipping a rock. When you skip a rock on the water, you get down real low, skip it parallel to the water. When you skip a jig, you do the same thing. When you release the jig from the end of your rod, let it be as parallel to the water as possible.
All right, hold on. I got a little distracted here. I got a question for you. I'm gonna cut everybody off and just get right to it. The area of North Carolina that you come from, North Carolina, South Carolina, that area seems to produce some really good fishermen. Why do you think that is?
Uh,
Historically, it has.
right, right. Uh, the number one reason is because we're such good casters. And that's just a product of the area that we're grown in. I think, Ricky, I don't know if y'all can hear the questions or see the question, but it was asked why is North Carolina produced some of the best fishermen. Well, I won't say best because Kevin's the best in the world, but a a lot of really good fishermen. You know, there's a lot of us in this area that actually make a living fishing. So, you know, and like I say, the number one deal was we can cast it. It's just a product of the area we growed up in. You know, the good local fishermen, they're really good casters. So we fish a lot of docks, and if you're a good caster, it kind of carries over into a lot of other things. So I'm gonna say that's the number one reason. You know why there's a lot of good fishermen come out of the area I live in. And number two is because you know the talent level that we fish against in the weekend, you know, the weekend tournaments or whatever is pretty dang strong. So you know, there's a lot of good weekend fishermen around here, and you know, and you kind of play to the level of your competition, and you know, I think that's the reason. You know, this is definitely a good area, and you see that. You see little beds of you know areas where really talented fishermen or a group of talented fishermen come from. You know, my area right on the North South Carolina line is definitely one of them. You know, I think about the Birmingham area. How many guys from Alabama? You know that little group right there are really good. And then you know Texas has got a lot of good anglers that come out of it too.
Yeah, Texas is surely a lot bigger area. It just has always amazed me that North Carolina, South Carolina, that little pocket you're in, the amount of good fishermen that come out of there.
Right.
But we got to get back to some serious questions now.
Yeah.
Back to the skipping question. This is kind of a follow up. When you're skipping docks and you know you're going to be skipping a lot of docks, are you primarily using fluorocarbon or are you using braid to fluorocarbon?
Yeah. Skipping. Can I hear? I mean, can I hear the question?
Yeah.
Skipping docks. I use fluorocarbon exclusively. Uh, I use cigar and Vizette. Um, I mean, that's just what I use. It's precision wound on the spool. If you don't get the 3,000 yard spool, it's precision wound. If you get the 1,000 yard spool, you know, which makes it lay on you real good and kind of have the, you know, the qualities of monofilament. You know, real length. And you need that. You need a high quality fluorocarbon. If you just go buy the cheapest fluorocarbon you can buy, man, it's gonna be aggravating. But you know, Envisage is really it's a good price. It's what I've used for a long time, even before I was sponsored by them. So I'll get you a good high quality fluorocarbon, and that's what I use all the time.
All right. Here's a good question for you. I'm curious to see how you answer this one.
Yeah.
Uh, you and Thrift still fish some together. How do you fish as a team with both of you being such good fishermen?
Uh, you know, it's we're both extremely competitive guys, but we never compete against each other when you know when we're in the boat together. So you know, I think that's you know that's there's no ego when we're in the boat together at all. And I know his strengths, and he knows my strengths. And you know, when we fish docks, you know, it's kind of surprising to a lot of people, but when we fish docks, you know, Brian gets in the back, and you know, and when we fish offshore, then I get my butt in the back because he's developed into one of the best, if not the best, offshore electronic fishermen, you know, in the world. And so, you know, I think we both know what each other's strengths are, and it's really unspoken. You know, I know if we're fishing shallow, I fish out of the front, and you know, if we're fishing offshore, you know, he fishes off the front, and we bounce back and forth throughout the day. If we stop on an offshore spot, it's just kind of automatic. He goes to the front. If you know, if we pull up to a dock or something, it's kind of automatic. I go to the front. So we really do work well, really well together.
All right. When do you fish the rodent and what color do you like?
Uh, well, you got three colors is basically all I use. Blue bug, which is kind of a black, you know, black, and then the sapphire blue on the bottom. Black with blue flake, and then double header. which is a green pumpkinish color with a little bit of red in it. The rode is versatile, man. You can fish it around anything. You put it on anything. Texas rig it, Carolina rig it. Put it on a jig. It's probably the most versatile bait that Strike King makes. So grass, man. I mean, it's anything. It's just absolutely anything. But if the water, if you're fishing around grass, then I really like, I really like the black and blue colors, the blue bug and the black and blue flake. And if I'm fishing around wood or something, I really like the double header.
All right. Tell us about fish management and how do you know when to stay in an area or when you need to leave an area? What helps you make those decisions?
Yeah, that's hard because fishing changes every day. Um, and that's something that I'm kind of still learning, and I may do some experimenting this year. I've been on the fish to win, a few times, and nationally, and I tried to manage my fish. Tried to back off a little bit when I got to a certain weight, and looking back on it, if I would have put the hammer down every day, I believe I would have won them tournaments. So, I'm starting to come to the philosophy that you catch all you can catch every day, and then see where it puts you. And the level of competition is so high at what we do, especially on the Elite Series, that you almost have to catch all you can catch every day and then worry about tomorrow when it gets here.
All right, here's another question from and guys, you'll have to apologize if I'm not catching all your names. It's some questions coming in here now for sure. Um, what kind test fluorocarbon do you use mostly for Texas rig baits?
Uh, Texas rig 15 or 17 is what I use, fluorocarbon.
All right. This is kind of a duplicate of a question we had earlier, but if you could just follow up with it again. Can you explain swimming a jig and what water temperature do you start to swim a jig?
Uh, like we said earlier, water temperature don't play a big role. It's more time of year. I like postpone into the summer and then early falls when I swim a jig. So May, June, July, all the way through September, October. And real basic, if you're fishing around grass, real pointed head, trailer with a lot of action, like a rage straw or a menace, just windy bait, just a steady retrieve. It catches a lot of fish doing that. And then if we're using around cover, put you just a standard, chunk tight trailer on it and put the action in it with your rod.
All right. Here's another question from Wayne Smelser. He must do some fishing down in your area because some of these questions are
Who's that?
Wayne Smelser.
Yeah, I don't know.
Uh, some of the questions are very North Carolina specific, I think. What's the best cold weather crankbait you throw in North Carolina?
Cold weather, Strike King Series 3.
Any particular color?
Uh, just a crawdad color in cold water. I hadn't been able to fish it, but we got the new flat sided bait. That's really good too. Um, flat side. Typically, you think of flat side crankbait for cold water. Shad rap's always been real big around here. Growing up, that's what I fished. But I've already said Strike King Series 3, and I got some buddies that I hope they ain't watching this, so they might come to my house tonight and kill me. But it catches a lot of fish, and I didn't discover that myself. Like I say, I had some buddies that won some local tournaments on it, and I had went fishing with them and seen it myself. So it's kind of like the Bandit's always been a good cold water crankbait. The 200 Bandit and that Strike King Series 3. Uh, last year I learned it's a killer cold water crankbait.
All right. Here's another one from Wayne. Fishing in North Carolina, I've noticed fish stay shallow pretty much all year. Does this prove true throughout the southern lakes?
Yes and no. Fish live shallow year round, but the difference, North Carolina, you can win year round fishing shallow. In other parts of the southeast, not. I mean, you can catch fish year round, shallow, but winning shallow, winning tournament shallow. Sometimes you can't do that at these other lakes in the southeast. All the North Carolina lakes and South Carolina lakes around where I live, you can definitely win 100-degree days, 90-degree water temperature. You know, we won tournaments 6 inches deep. That's all. I mean, that's all we fish. We fish a lot of tournament fishing. That's pretty much all we do. So, it's hard to win out deep.
All right. What trailers do you normally throw on your swim jig? And this one's from Jonathan.
Uh, the the rage crawl, the Strike King rage crawl is what I've always thrown. You know, for the last several years. But the new menace that come out, that's kind of what we started throwing last year, and I mean, it's just a killer football jig or swim jig trailer. You can actually, I wish I had one in here. I could tell you, it's got two flaps, and typically, you put them on there, um, put them on there, at a 90-degree angle to the hook or whatever. But this deal, you can actually turn it in line with the hook, and that thing will swim. It'll kick just like it looks just like a bait fish tail kicking. So, try that. Put that thing on there in line with the hook and wind it in the water and watch it work. It's incredible.
All right. Hang on. It kind of got ahead of me again there, Andy. What size and color jig do you throw most of the time? If you could just pick one jig, what would it be?
One jig. Growing up around here, hand tied jig is 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 the deal. You got to have a hand tied jig for skipping because we skip so much. And I've always thrown a pure lure jig. It's just it's a local made, hand tied, high quality jig. Got good hooks in it, and that's if I had to pick one jig, it'd be a half ounce shooter jig, crawdad color, and that's something around here I can skip under them docks and the skirt stays where it needs to stay.
And the reason for the hand tied jig is
Skipping. It's so your skirt will stay in place where it needs to stay. If you skip with a regular banded collar, um, if the collar is not made, most of the jigs made on the market, for flipping or most of the jigs, mass produced jigs have the rubber collar, which makes them have a deep collar to hold that rubber in place. Well, that's going to create, kind of a rough spot when it hits the water. It's going to create a lot of drag. And plus, man, the skirts, when you skip it, it just goes all to pieces. You can't keep the skirts, you can't keep the skirts trimmed like you need to get them trimmed and stuff. So, skipping's the reason I really like a hand tied jig. But and that's kind of a product of the area that I grew up in too. When you get off, a lot of people don't skip bait. So then that's the reason you can get away with the regular rubber collar jig. But me, where I grew up, the way I skip bait, it's a half ounce shooter jig.
all right. Here's another one from Stretches 10. How many depth finders do you run on your boat, and where do you mount the transducers?
that's a question for Brian Three. But no, I run three on mine. I run a Lowrance AC10 up front, and then two tens at the console. The transducers, the one up front, they actually run off the trolling motor. The transducer in the back run, right under where my batteries is at. The reason I run two at the console is I like to run one on mapping and standard 2D sonar, and then I run the other one on split screen, down imaging and side imaging. So, the mapping's huge in what we do now. So, you got to have one. It's really hard to flip back and forth, and if you use the split screen, um, with the map, and then try to look at the side imaging, it's just hard to do. Now, locally, if I just fish locally, I could get away with 110 because I know the lakes, and I wouldn't have to go to that mapping so much. But if you're going to lakes that you really don't know, that mapping key really don't map.
All right, here's another question from Mr. Schmelzer. He knows you're known to be a shallow water fisherman, do a lot of dive fishing. How do you adapt for the smallmouth venues?
Uh, I power fish them, and I can get them to bite. It's just landing them suckers with treble hooks. But I'm not big at catching them on drop shots and stuff. When I go up north, I catch them on a spinner bait. You know, catch them on top water, catch them on crankbait. That's the stuff I catch them on. So, when I catch them on that spinner bait, I can get them in the boat. But jerkbait's huge. That color we talked about a while ago, that stroke jazz. That's just a killer smallmouth. So, I power fish them. I don't really slow down, and I get a lot of bites. I hook a lot of big smallmouth and get what I can in the boat, see where it puts.
All right, we got some line questions here. This is from Ken. The new Cigar braid. Have you had a chance to use it yet? And what are your thoughts?
Yeah, the SmackDown is good. It's I don't know if you was here earlier, but we talked about cheaper braid is actually six strands woven together, and the new SmackDown has more than that. It may have 8 or 10, depending on what size line you get, actual strands woven together. And, the more strands that you weave together, the more round the line's going to be. If you buy a cheaper braid, it's actually flat if you look at it real close. So, that's what they've done with the SmackDown. They've woven more of them strands together. It makes it more round, so it's going to fish more like fluorocarbon or monofilament. Um, Stronger. Obviously, the more rounds you put together, the more little strands that that tie together, it's obviously gonna make it stronger. So that's where we're seeing the braided market go. And SmackDown's kind of leading the way on that.
All right, here's another one for you. The Southern Open starts tomorrow. If you were fishing, how and what kind of strategy would you be using?
I would have looked offshore in Toho the majority of my practice time because that's typically where it gets won. You can find a wad of them out there and win out there. And then if I didn't find a wad of them, then I'd probably be in Kissimmee flipping matted vegetation. I think it's cold down there right now, so offshore can hold up in them cold fronts. I can remember being down there and freezing to death and catch them offshore Toho. And then Florida, flipping's always good when it's cold too. So I'd either be in Kissimmee flipping, or hopefully I found a really good load of fish offshore in the offshore high drill in Toho.
All right, Jonathan's coming at you with another jerkbait question. Um, what's the best jerkbait color for fishing a jerkbait on Lake Norman in February?
The strobe shad's a good color. It's got the because Norman's got a lot of spotted bass in it. So, you know, the Strobe shad, like we talked about, it's got the purple back, is a real good one. And the one that's just got the purple blue back with no chartreuse belly, the Pro Blue, is is a real good one. That's really the two. That's the two you need right there. Keep it simple.
All right, here comes one from Tide Nut. How much time do you spend on researching a lake before you go there?
Not much. Tide Nut. That's the name. Is that what it was?
Tide Nut.
That might be Jamie Horton. I don't know. But
No, it's not. It's I can't think of his name. He's on here every week, but it's not Jamie.
I don't spend a lot. You know, in the past, my really good tournaments is I just show up and go fishing, and you kind of fish, kind of fish on instinct. So, I definitely don't do what some of these guys do as far as putting in the information work and talking to a lot of locals and stuff. I just it's never really benefited me. Now, not to say I wouldn't talk to a local if I had the opportunity, but I'm telling you, man, I've really learned just um, even if I talk to them, it's just so hard to put much emphasis on what they tell you now because it's just never worked out for me in the past. All of my good tournaments have been on my own, showing up with not having a clue. And a classic example of that is Chickamauga. I think I finished third or something. I fished a lot, showed up at Chickamauga, had no clue about the lake. And, actually, this is one of them deals we talked about earlier. I was on the fish to win, but I tried to manage them, which was stupid. I should have just put the hammer down every day. But after it was over, Andy Morgan, who's lived there all his life, said, I can't believe you caught them where you caught them. So, that's typically what happens. Typically our tournaments are won where the locals, don't think they're going to be won. I remember the classic being won on Lake Wiley up the river, and no local thought the classic would be won up the river on Lake Wiley, and Top of Hill won it up there. So typically our tournaments are won on something, off the wall that we find on our own.
All right, here's one I'm kind of curious to hear the answer to. You travel all over the country. Can you name a few tools you never leave home without?
A few tools.
A few tools that you carry with you.
The first one's baby wipes. Cause if the pain hits you on your water, man, baby wipes is that's the only thing Gerald Swindler's ever taught me. But I'm gonna tell you, it works. I carry a flashlight in my truck. I carry a jack. And a good lug wrench in case we have trouble on the road. So that's the tools. I got a little, I got a Craftsman kit that I carry in my truck. But probably the jack and the good lug wrench is probably the number one thing that you need to carry because you're going to have tire problems and you're going to have to change the tire on the road. And getting that little jack out of your truck or whatever they put in there, that's a joke. So, carrying a good jack makes things a lot easier.
All right. Well, we're getting close to running out of time here, Andy, and I do have a couple questions I want to get to you. First of all, Robbie from Propeller Dynamics said that his internet service is horrible, but to tell you hi and maybe get you to talk a little bit about the equalizer.
Yeah, I run the equalizer last year, and it's basically a lift assistant for a motor guide trolling motor, and when I put it on there, I could tell it did something, but I didn't know how much. I could tell it was easy, and basically when you pick it out of the water, motor guide can be real heavy, so it takes as much as 50%, off your trolling motor, but mine actually come off in one practice day, and I didn't have time to put it back on, so I just popped it off and fished the next day without that thing, and it was a world of difference. So I put mine back on that night, and it just makes it's just less fatigue at the end of the day. That thing trolling gonna get heavy at the end of the day, and that cutting that in half is nice.
Something to it. All right, we're going to try to get a couple more questions in here, and then I'll wrap this thing up. Uh, Wayne joined us a little bit late, and we'd already talked some about Hartwell, but he comes up with a pretty good question here. Are you excited about the 2015 Classic being on Hartwell? Will this change the way you fish throughout the year? Will you be more conservative and just try to fish to make the Classic this year?
No, you can't be conservative in the elite series. You're gonna get your butt kicked. So no, it's not gonna change the way I fish. I've been right there making the Classic. Within 10 points or whatever. Few ounces last few years. So yeah, it's not gonna change the way I fish. Definitely want to be there. Like I said, it's an hour and 15 minutes from my house. So I definitely don't want to be in that show. People asking why you ain't fishing or how'd you do today or whatever. So, it adds a new excitement being there. I'm fishing FLW this year mainly because I want to fish the championship on Lake Murray. So that's going to be a chance to fish for combined $1 million in your home state. Within 6 months or whatever. So,
Wow.
pretty cool.
That'd be a couple pretty good paydays there.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to finish it up with these last two questions. When you're fishing a rodent Texas rig, or just flipping a Texas rig bait, do you prefer to peg your weight or not?
Use bobber stoppers. That's what I use. It's a little rubber deal that goes on your line. That keeps your weight from sliding up. And when you hook a fish, you can get the weight away from the fish so you don't lose them. So I use bobber stoppers instead of actually pegging the weight. And dude, I don't forgot the second part of the question. I use all my brain cells to get out of glimpse.
That's pretty much it. Just do you peg or not peg?
I use bobbers. I use a bobber.
Right. Gotcha. And the last question, and we'll go ahead and wrap it up here. Do you have any particular process that you go through for every practice or pre-fishing stretch that you do? Is there something you do specifically, or you just kind of go out there by the seat of your pants and see what happens?
You about said fat pants, but yeah, I just go by really just go. Go the first day, learn as much as you can the first day, and then go from there. We got ideas when we get there. Because we've been a lot of the places, and if we hadn't been to the place, we've been to that region, of the country, and different regions fish really similar. So if you go to a Tennessee River Lake or Florida Lake or a Carolina Lake, of course we got Heron Lake, and then we got Shad oriented lakes. Typically we have an idea. Smallmouth Lake, typically we have an idea of what we need to do, or I have an idea of what I'd like to do. So, but there's no set routine. Fish shallow for 4 hours and then fish deep for 4 hours. It's just kind of a feel thing.
All right, 3 last quick questions. Do you have any superstitions?
No superstition.
What's your favorite place to eat while you're on the road?
There's not one place. I mean, hopefully we find something local. Like a little local mom and pop eatery. That's always good. When you find kind of a local restaurant. So not one big fast food. Not one big chain. Fast food, I like Chick-fil-A. That's number one. But when we get to the tournament, hopefully find us a good local restaurant.
And the last question we're going to finish with is, what's your favorite all-time movie?
I'm not a big movie guy. I don't know. It has to be a true story because wife, plus she loves movies. I hate movies. You know, I'm a big sports guy. I love to watch sports. You know, it's hard for me to watch something that I know is scripted. That's just I just don't like watching scripted stuff. So that's the reason I watch a lot of sports. Some of them sometimes you wonder if they're scripted, but
All right, Andy. Well, look, man, we appreciate you taking the time to join us tonight. And you know, these guys, I hope they realize what they just got from you. Yeah, the information you gave is pretty invaluable. And again, I just want to thank you on behalf of all the viewers at Bass East. Uh, Good luck in 2014, and I will see you at the Classic.
all right, guys, take care.